This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 93rd time ever, we are live from the Reviewing Network studios in some part of Western Pennsylvania. I can't tell you where, but I didn't even want to add that part in there. But anyway, welcome to the Reviewing Network Live, everybody. It is Sunday, June 8th. Another Sunday has come and arrived, and you're probably wondering what the update is on the U.S. Open, since I talked about it on the last episode, and well, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not going tomorrow. And it was mostly my fault, mostly because, a couple months ago, I was told, hey, schedule June 9th off so you can go to the U.S. Open to see the practice and all that. And I hadn't been up there before. I wanted to, is up in Oakmont, and is where it's happening this weekend. And I wanted to go see it. I had a chance to go see it. I missed out on an opportunity to see it about 10 years ago. I think it was 2016 when it happened, but I couldn't do it back then. I was ready to go for it this time around. And then I looked at my schedule for the week, and I realized, and it said on there that I was working tomorrow. Now, even though I had already scheduled that day off, and they usually do give me the days off that I want to take off if I need a day off there, but so I went to check the schedule, the thing where I do to check my schedule, and then I realized that I had scheduled for July 9th off, not June 9th off. So yeah, I have no one to blame for this except for myself, because I didn't check to make sure I had the right month on there. And so yeah, unfortunately that means I'm not going to see the US Open tomorrow, unfortunately, which sucks, but I have nobody to blame but myself. So we're running things as pretty much as we usually do here. If I had gone to the U.S. Open tomorrow, I probably would have had to start earlier today. Like, you would have probably seen this by the time I'm recording this, which is right now about 6:30 in the evening. But other than that, though, we've got a lot of other things to talk about this week. We got a pretty packed week of stuff to talk about. I have some movie reviews for some films that came out on Blu-ray and streaming the last couple of weeks I want to talk about. Yesterday, CNN had the Good Night and Good Luck on Broadway, which was, of course, the Broadway production of the classic George Clooney movie, where George Clooney stars in this one as Edward Murrow. And I watched it on CNN yesterday, and I want to talk about that one, some other stories this week, and then, of course, there was a major story in Pittsburgh a couple of days ago where somebody was finally confirmed to arrive here, and we're going to delve into that in just a little bit. But before we do any of that, we start off as we usually do, and that is, of course, with the weekend box office, which really is interesting for one particular reason in general. Other than that, though, not really much happened this week. This is kind of the calm before the storm that will be next weekend when How to Train Your Dragon opens. And we'll talk more about that at the end of the video, at the end of this segment. But starting off with number 5, we have Final Destination Bloodlines still hanging in there, which is very impressive for not only a Final Destination movie, but a horror film. Horror right now is booming right now. If you've got a horror movie coming up in the next couple of months, you are in good position right now, because we just had Sinners, we have Final Destination Bloodlines. Bring Her Back actually still did pretty well overall, even though it fell off 51% this week, but Final Destination Bloodlines, and then a couple weeks from now, we've got 28 years later, which is supposedly set to make somewhere between $35 to $50 million, which is really impressive numbers in general, but that's what the tracking is right now. So yeah, it's a good time to be in the horror business right now, and Final Destination Bloodlines is one of the reasons for that. $6.5 million this weekend, bringing its 4-week total now to $123.5 million. If you count worldwide numbers, it has crossed the $250 million mark. And again, I'm kind of surprised that maybe they're not going to announce a sequel, or maybe they're just waiting until maybe they're going to take their time with it, and we'll get it in a couple of years' time. But I'm actually kind of surprised they have yet to announce a sequel plan yet, considering that this cost $50 million, and they've already made back that budget and then some. So moving on to number 4, this is kind of surprising to see it drop off as much as it did. Karate Kid Legends, which fell off 57% from last week, bringing its total this week to $8.7 million. Domestically, it has brought in $35.4 million over the past 2 weeks. And if you count worldwide numbers, it's at $74 million. It only cost $45 million to produce, so it wasn't a flop in general, but it is definitely a movie that is not performing well up to what I think the studio was hoping for. And maybe that means we're probably not going to see another Karate Kid movie, which at this point, I honestly wouldn't mind not seeing another one, because this one was not just barely chugging along and keeping it there. It is cool to see Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio coming together to help this young kid out, but the biggest problem with the Karate Kid movies as of late is that they're the same movies over and over again. And this one was just the same movie, except we've got both Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio, and it's just kind of like, I mean, it's fine and all, but you got to have something more than that. And I mean, I don't know how Sony's going to take this, but I don't think they're really happy with the performance of this. But I don't know. That's just my personal opinion on that. But number 3 on the list, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which has brought in $15 million this weekend, bringing its 3-week total now to $149.2 million domestically. If you count worldwide numbers, it's up to $450 million worldwide. Of course, this thing costs $400 million, so it has a long way to go before it can make that money back in general. But the good news is that after 3 weeks, it has already surpassed what Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning did back in July of 2023. By this point of the 3rd week, Dead Reckoning Part 1 was at $139.1 million. This one is now over $149 million. So yeah, they're good. They're feeling pretty good about that one overall. And will it be the last movie in general? Well, we'll find out down the road. But now we get to the interesting one here. The number 2 movie this week, which I personally thought was going to happen, but a lot of people looked at this and are really thinking to themselves, well, why isn't this doing well? I mean, the numbers coming out of it were pretty good, but from the world of John Wick, Ballerina, which brought in $25 million, which is not a bad opening for this, considering that it has a $90 million budget to it. $51 million if you count worldwide numbers in total. So it didn't do good business, but it didn't do bad business either. It just did kind of run-of-the-mill business in general. And everyone was kind of wondering, well, what happened here? I mean, the numbers coming out of it were strong, and it's got an A- cinema score, which is actually one of the better ones in the Wick franchise, especially when you consider, John Wick Chapter 4 had an A, the original John Wick had a B, and then John Wick 2 had an A-, so it's in that same category. And honestly, I think it really does come down to a couple of things in general. One simple. Ana de Armas is not a big box office draw. I mean, she's a great actress and all, and she proves in this movie she's got potential to be a good action heroine, but at the same time, she's not a big reliable draw in general. I mean, she really is not a name that people go to the movies to see, like you would see with a Keanu Reeves or, a Tom Cruise in general. Like, she hasn't reached that echelon yet where you go see a movie with her in it, and it's gonna be big numbers overall. And I think the fact that this did as well as it did, bit of numbers indeed, I mean, I think it helps out in the favor of it. But another problem is that, like, things we've talked about before, Keanu Reeves being all over the advertising for it. I mean, the title of it is literally From the World of John Wick. Like, it can't really let this thing be its own movie, and I think that really helped. I think that really, unfortunately failed to get this to a point where, it's not to it really kind of hurts the success factor there when you promote somebody in this movie who really only has a cameo. Like, he's all over the advertising for this, and he's barely in the movie. Like they make him but they also kind of make him part of the third act climax, which just doesn't work overall, really, and that's a shame, because the pieces were definitely there for something where you could have done something where he could have shown up in the a post-credit sequence to tie it into the other movies. But I mean, I think they made a big mistake on that front too, and I think Lionsgate, keep in mind what happened a couple weeks before with the whole thing about the critics, the online critics saying that, you can't, if you're gonna say bad things about it, we want you to wait until the Wednesday before the film comes out, which is never a good sign. If they were asking you to hold off on reviews until 2 days before the movie comes out, they don't believe in the movie, even though this movie did very well with critics. I mean, it got a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes last time I checked. So, but yeah, the whole thing though, I think that kind of hurt it in the long run in general. And I mean, it's just a really odd thing with this movie, and really, it's not really much of a surprise in general, why this did end up doing what it did. And I just think Lionsgate's in a bad place right now. They've had so many movies that did not perform well, so many movies that have not done the numbers they wanted to. They hadn't had a number one movie until it's between Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which was in November 23, and then Den of Thieves 2 in 2025, January 2025. 14 months without a number one movie in the box office, and that trend has sadly continued, because even after January, where they had Den of Thieves and then Flight Risk, the movies they put out have not been the biggest successes, unfortunately. And this is supposed to be Lionsgate's big summer movie in general. There's not really anything else coming out for them for the rest of the summer, as far as I can tell. Yeah, From the World of John Wick is supposed to be their big summer tentpole. All the other movies I'm looking at here are either indie films or films that are being released through Roadside Attractions, which is like their independent film company. And yeah, nothing I see here looks like it's going to have any kind of box office strength whatsoever. And I think that's really going to hurt the film in the long run, in the box office in general for Lionsgate, because this is all they have going for them this summer. Hurry Up Tomorrow's already gone out of theaters. Nobody remembers Shadow Force, and that came out last month. But I don't know. It's just there's also an article on Deadline talking about how the sense is that we've seen these Girl with a Gun movies before, and there's plenty of copycats on streaming. And they talk about The Old Guard, Heart of Stone, The Mother. So why rush out? But I think this is a wake-up call for Lionsgate, that they really do need to go back and get back to stop relying on all these franchise movies, because the next big movies that they have, a Now You See Me sequel that nobody's been asking for, and then we just had the trailer for the remake of Kiss of the Spider Woman, which looks incredible, and I think if anything that's going to probably help them out in the long run, because I think that movie's going to do gangbuster business, and hopefully Jennifer Lopez gets an Oscar nomination out of that, because yeah, that trailer looked really, really impressive. I'm definitely looking forward to checking that one out now, but yeah, so overall, Ballerina didn't do so well. I don't know if it's going to do well in the next couple of weeks, especially considering that, we've got a lot of big adult movies coming up in the next couple of weeks, including Brad Pitt's F1. We also have Megan 2.0, which Megan 2.0 supposedly is going to do a lot better than F1. And F1 has got like a $300 million budget. And of course, you got Jurassic World Rebirth, which is going to do gangbuster business. And Superman's coming up after that. So it's going to be really, really hard for this movie to make back that budget in general, which I think it'll probably do overseas. But yeah, that movie should have probably done a lot better in general. But you can't deny the power of the number one movie for the third week in a row, Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch brought in $32.5 million, dropping 47% from last week, bringing its 3-week total now to $335.8 million if you count the worldwide numbers, closing in on $800 million worldwide, $772 million. And in terms of watching for Minecraft, it's right now about less than $8 million behind the Minecraft movie, which probably means that it won't surpass the Minecraft movie, which sucks because I want that movie to go down, but unfortunately it doesn't look like it's going to do that, especially what's coming up next weekend, which the buzz will be on How to Train Your Dragon, which should do good enough business overall. Something saying that it might crack $100 million, but we'll see what happens in general with that film. Like I said yesterday on Talk About the Movies, I'm still very much, I want it to be good, but I just feel like it's just going to be a bland shot-for-shot remake of the original film. I mean, there's so many things that could hurt this movie in general, but I'm not going in there with negative thoughts. I'm going in there giving it the benefit of the doubt. I'm giving it a chance, so hopefully they will not prove me wrong on that front. But yeah, that's the only big new release coming next weekend, and then we have The Life of Chuck going into wider release next weekend, which didn't do great business overall, unfortunately. $216 million in about 16 theaters, which it's not bad, but they were probably expecting a whole lot more from it. Plus, it's Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan is a director that can do no wrong, and I've heard a lot of great things about this movie in general. So hopefully the buzz will get bigger on that front there. But there was one more new release that came out this weekend, and wider release, and that was Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme, which brought in $6.2 million. If you count the numbers from its limited release beforehand, $6.9 million was the total. And I'm trying to see what the budget on this was, because I don't know, because I think this did just a little bit under Asteroid City, which I think brought in $9 million. Budget on this was $30 million. Worldwide, if you count worldwide numbers, it's up to $18 million, but it is sounding like a typical Wes Anderson movie, and I like a lot of Wes Anderson movies, so I'm still looking forward to checking it out. I'm probably going to enjoy the hell out of it, So with all that said, let's go ahead and get on to the big news stories of the weekend. Let's just start off with what the Steelers did this past Friday. Well, let's start off the news stories by talking about what happened on Thursday, not Friday. My mistake, but it's officially official, ladies and gentlemen. Aaron Rodgers is now the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, excuse me for 1 second. I'm sorry, I just broke another keyboard. Okay, I didn't do that. That was that's elite Def breaking his keyboard. But really, that's how I felt when I finally got the news that this is really happening. This is finally happening here. But from the NFL's official website, Aaron Rodgers passed his physical and signed a 1-year, $13.6 million contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers that includes $10 million guaranteed and can be worth up to $19.5 million with incentives. NFL Network insiders Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero reported Saturday. So at least it wasn't a big pay for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's not like what happened when he was leaving Green Bay, when Green Bay wanted 3 first-round draft picks, and it was just like, yeah, you better be getting prime Aaron Rodgers at that point if you better be damn sure that that's a good decision, because we saw what happened with Russell Wilson and the Broncos, and Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, really. But Aaron Rodgers and the Jets didn't really cost a whole lot there. But the team, which said Rodgers will speak to the media on Tuesday following the first practice of Pittsburgh's mandatory minicamp, announced the quarterback's signing shortly afterward. The Steelers also revealed Rodgers will don number 8 as he did with the New York Jets the past 2 years. Rappaport, Pelissero, and NFL Network insider Mike Garafolo initially reported Thursday that Rodgers had informed the club that he would apply to Pittsburgh and sign a deal. The Steelers confirmed a day later that they had agreed to terms pending a physical, and the day after that completed the final hurdle. Rodgers' participation in minicamp and post-practice news conference will tie a bow of what has been a long, drawn-out free agency process as the 4-time most valuable player with 62,952 career passing yards and 503 passing touchdowns finally gets underway with his 3rd NFL team. So yeah, this is pretty much something that everyone was expected to happen, and I know I said at the beginning that if the Steelers did this, then I was pretty much done with them. But then again, I was pretty much done with them from the time the season ended. Not even then, but the time that the first quarter ended against the Ravens in the playoff game, because it was just like, that was the point where it was just like, they don't give a shit at all, because if they did want to win a Super Bowl, they would have not half-assed their way out of that terrible game that started the year off, because yeah, that was a terrible, terrible way to start the year off. And it got worse from there, because they let Russell Wilson go, they let Justin Fields go, they let Kenny Pickett go the year before to now be a Super Bowl champion with the Eagles. It's just, I mean, this whole thing, I've really got nothing else to say about this whole thing, because at this point, it's just like, they're clearly not trying to win anything. And the sad part is, I'd be saying that hopefully this means that they're going to try to tank for next year for the number 1 overall pick, but that's not going to happen. The Steelers are going to end the year off at 9-8, because they usually do, or 10-7, and then just go into the playoffs as the 6 or 7 seed, and then get their ass handed to them in the first quarter by whoever team they face against, because it's the same thing that's been going on for the last 6 years now, and it really is getting sick and tiring. Not even 6 years, 8 years at this point. It's just like, I don't care anymore. I just really don't care. Like, I'm just waiting for that moment for them to eventually let T.J. Watt go win a Super Bowl somewhere else, because we know it's coming. They're going to say that, we're going to try our best to we're going to do everything we can to keep him around, and then it's just like, well, we tried, and just let him go off, and he probably wins the Super Bowl with either Kansas City or Philadelphia. Just, at this point, I just don't care anymore. I just think it's hilarious that the Steelers were so willing to get rid of the, quote, cancers, unquote, of the locker room, like Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Le'Veon Bell, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Kenny Pickett, and yet they were all willing to they're willing to open the floodgates for the ultimate cancer in Aaron Rodgers, a guy who has clearly not been the same person since he left Green Bay, and really has just kind of fallen into conspiracy theory territory, just crazy nut job. And I saw a video Microphone did about Aaron Rodgers and how he basically he's taking the LeBron James type of running his business and saying that, and basically, because he basically thinks he's the NFL's equivalent to LeBron James, where he's the one that's making all the rules. He's the one that's causing the media to stick with him no matter what. And you can make that argument that that's true, but at the same time, it's just like it's a great video, by the way. It's a great video to check out. I'll leave a link to it down in the bottom so you can go check it out. But it was something that is very interesting. It's a long video, too. It's like a 40-minute video where he's running down how Aaron Rodgers started his career as the backup to Brett Favre, and then as the time went on, he basically manipulated his way to having the media do and say whatever he wants to at this point, and it's been working out for him. And so, this just has a fiasco written all over it. This whole thing just has a disaster waiting to happen, and it's the first time in a long time that I just don't care about the Steelers season at this point. I know I've got a couple games I'm doing this year for the Sunday Night NFL rewatch, and I'm doing it because, why not? You got the Aaron Rodgers Bowl in a week in October, and then the Najee Harris Bowl in November when the Steelers go chase the Chargers, and a couple of revenge games for Aaron Rodgers and company, especially considering that the first game of the year is in New York with the Jets. So Aaron Rodgers goes up against the former Steeler quarterback Justin Fields. And then later on in the year, he'll face his former team in the Packers. Then he'll face the team that he wanted to play for in the Vikings, and the team that he's a partial owner of, the Chicago Bears. And yeah, it's just... And yet I'm still not excited for it. And I'm really probably the only person who cares about this team that isn't being delusional, because I swear, as soon as this happened, as soon as it was revealed that Aaron Rodgers was finally going to come to the Steelers, everybody all of a sudden decided, oh, we love Aaron Rodgers now. Oh, this is the perfect guy. On social media, the people who had hated Aaron Rodgers beforehand and didn't like the fact that he was taking way too long, finally just is all of a sudden just completely shut up and just was just like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is coming. And just no, don't be that person, please. And sadly, that's what it's come down to, and it's just, I just don't care anymore at this point, because we all know what's going to happen here. It's either going to end in a disaster where the team doesn't do anything, they make the playoffs but get bounced out of the first year, and Mike Tomlin's still going to be there because he's the one who's championing the whole decision, and I just wanted to get that out of the way right now, because I really don't care anymore. I just don't. So let's get to some stuff that I do care about. Let's get to some movie news. There was a good assortment of different movie stories coming out this week. And one of the big things right off the bat was that Mikey Madison is coming off of the success of Anora, which she won the Oscar for. She has finally decided on her first project after starring in that movie, as the Hollywood Reporter has right here. Mikey Madison is in talks to star in The Masque of the Red Death, a reimagining of the creepy Edgar Allan Poe story from filmmaker Charlie Pollinger. It hails from A24, which will distribute it worldwide with Picture Start, which is producing. Madsen had developed a reputation of being very particular in choosing her roles, and despite numerous outreaches, has not engaged in much since her comet-like ascendance after Anora premiered at the Cannes Film Festival last year. There are two exceptions. She was in brief talks to play a villain in the Star Wars movie Starfighter, which we'll get to that in just a second. And
hey guys,
what? An ad just started popping up as I was about to talk there, so that's what that was. But she's also attached herself to the package Reptilia, about a dental hygienist who falls in love with a mermaid. Now Madsen may have found a role that could be a worthy follow-up, and one that has a serious start of production date. Sources tell the Hollywood Reporter that Madison would play two sisters in a story that sees a mad prince take in the noble class into his castle, while a plague devastates the peasantry. The story sees a long-lost twin hidden among the lower classes entering the castle and into a decadent world of ogres, orgies, opium and power schemes, revenge, and decapitations. The project has been described as a quintessential A24 movie, one that likely will include eyebrow-raising, memeable scenes that should resonate among these stupid fucking pop-ups keep coming up here, man. One that likely will include eyebrow-raising, memeable scenes that should resonate among the TikTok class. Madison represents another It girl in Red Death. Sydney Sweeney was previously on board to star, but dropped out due to scheduling. Sweeney has a packed schedule this year, including Euphoria, and is due to star in Legendary's adaptation of Japanese media property Gundam in the fall. Red Death is due to shoot at the end of the year or early next year, according to sources. So I like the fact that she is finally taking her time with picking out the next role in general. And, I've been saying Mikey Madison's on her way to becoming a really damn good actress. I think she's on her way to becoming kind of this generation's kind of Audrey Hepburn. But this sounds like it could be a lot of fun. It reminds me a lot of Jeremy Irons and Dead Ringers. It sounded like. I think this could be something where it's on that kind of level. I haven't read the story of Masque of the Red Death, but it's A24. A24 is usually known for going out there with their stuff, so yeah, this is definitely one I'm looking forward to checking out at some point, especially with Mikey Madison on board as the star. But anyway, on to the next story we've got here. And that is that a sequel to one of this year's first big hits, One of Them Days, is in the works, with Keke Palmer and SZA returning once again. Things are looking up for One of Them Days. A sequel is in early development for the original comedy movie that Sony Pictures released earlier this year. Stars Keke Palmer and SZA are expected to return, as is the film's creative team. Lawrence Lamont held the TriStar Pictures feature from a script by Sarita Singleton. It hit theaters in January and surpassed $50 million at the global box office. Lil Rel Howery, Janelle James, Keila Monteresso Meja, Maude Apatow, Cat Williams, Joshua Neal, Aziza Scott, Patrick Cage, and Amin Joseph also starred in the first film. One of Them Days centers around best friends and roommates Dre, Palmer, and Alyssa SZA, who learns that Alyssa's boyfriend has squandered their rent money. The pals must scramble to avoid eviction in a race against the clock, while also striving to keep their friendship intact. And this was a movie I really enjoyed. I actually thought this was very, very good. It was one of the first movies of the year that I considered to be one of the best films of the year. It was a really, really good comedy that really kind of came out of nowhere. And I've always said, if you're going to do a sequel, do it now. Like, do it while the film still has the zeitgeist to it. Don't wait 5 or 10 years between the last movie's release and that. That's my thing with comedy sequels. They take way too long to get out there, only to end up just being lackluster retreads of the original movie, which this could end up being. But, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. I like the first movie a lot. I like these actors a lot. And I'm really excited to see what they do with it. The first film kind of reminded me a lot of the first Friday movies in general, so hopefully they'll go down that pathway with the next film. And hopefully it'll be better than next Friday, but this is one I'm definitely looking forward to checking out at some point. So that's a story about One of Them Days. Now on to the next story. So Blumhouse Studios, this is the news this week, as they bought the rights for the Saw franchise from Lionsgate. And this was the story from Deadline Hollywood. It says, in a deal that will bring James Wan back in touch with the mega horror IP he created, we hear from several sources that Blumhouse is acquiring the prospective rights to Twisted Pictures' portion of the Saw franchise. In short, Blumhouse essentially has taken over the IP's ownership from Twisted's Mark Berg and Oren Coles. Lionsgate will continue to be involved as a partner and in fact owns 50% of the franchise. As of this time, there isn't development on another movie yet. Wan directed the first Saw movie in 2004 and co-wrote with Leigh Whannell. Wan remained the executive producer on remaining Saw movies. Saw follows the notorious serial killer John Jigsaw Kramer and his cronies. Instead of killing his victims, he traps them in life-threatening tests and games as they try to survive through physical or psychological torture. The Saw franchise not only goes to over $1 billion at the global box office from 10 movies, but spawned comic books, video games, theme park attractions, toys, masks, and clothing. There was a Saw 11 in development that was previously scheduled for September of this year. However, the project was stalled. Lionsgate and the franchise producers didn't see eye to eye in the 11th movie. Saw X director Kevin Gruder was attached to direct. His 2023 version opened to $18.3 million domestically, filing at $53.6 million stateside, and went north of $112 million globally. It's funny because that one was actually one of the better received movies in the series. I think it was the best reviewed film of the series, and yet they're stopping it. They decided not to go with the 11th movie in general. So, I mean, I don't know. This seems really interesting to see the direction they're going with this. I mean, I mean, Blumhouse can usually do a lot of good stuff with their movies with a lesser budget, but then again, when it comes to franchise films, they're usually not as strong as their more original stuff. And when I mean franchise stuff, I mean like classic franchises. Like we saw what happened with the Halloween movies. We saw what happened with The Exorcist. We just saw what happened with The Wolfman. I mean, yeah, they don't usually do very good at like at taking over established franchises. And Saw is an established franchise, and I mean, there's a possibility it could end up being good because Jason Blum's James Wan's now back involved with the series. But at the same time, it's just like it's really kind of hard to get excited about this new movie, especially with how Blumhouse has kind of been with the more established horror franchises, but. I mean, they haven't been terrible in terms of their movies. I mean, Drop was actually pretty good, as was Speak No Evil, which I didn't think was going to be that good from the trailers. But I mean, I don't know. This could definitely go many, many ways. Hopefully, they'll get it back on track with this, and I mean, it could be good. It could end up actually being worth it in the end. But I don't know. I've still got my doubts about them after what happened with The Wolfman this past January. That movie just, how do you screw up The Wolfman, man? But. The Wolfman Man. I'm sorry. Anyway, let's get on to the next article here about another franchise of films getting a refurbishment. This is one I'm actually kind of surprised that it's taken them this long to finally get going again. The Care Bears are possibly coming back with a new movie, and they got a good director behind it, too. The Care Bears are set to open their hearts for a new feature project. Josh Greenbaum will direct the movie Care Bears that is in early development at Warner Brothers. A writer has not yet been announced for the film that has also not disclosed plot details. Producers include Chris Bender and Jake Weiner for Good Fear and Jonathan Goldson and Jonathan Francis Daly for Gold Day. Of course, they're the guys who just did Dungeons and Dragons, and they were behind Horrible Bosses. So, good people. There are good people behind this so far. Care Bears got their start on greeting cards in the early 1980s and landed their own television series later that decade. They have also been the focus of such films as 1985's The Care Bears Movie, which featured Mickey Rooney among the voice cast, and was also most notably known as the film that beat out The Black Cauldron at the box office, Disney's Darkest Day. That's really Disney's big disaster, losing to The Care Bears Movie of all things, but that's for another time. Greenbaum is known for such features as Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, great movie, Strays, not a great movie, Will and Harper, the documentary that came out last year, a fantastic film. He's in post-production on The Dink, a pickleball movie starring Ben Stiller and Jake Johnson. Greenbaum is also attached to direct a Spaceball sequel film for Amazon MGM Studios. So the guy they got there directed is not a bad director, and the Care Bears like I said, I'm actually kind of surprised it took them this long to bring the Care Bears back to the big screen. I mean, my sister and I grew up with Care Bears as a kid, but we used to watch all the time on the Disney Channel. We had the taste, we watched the movies. I mean, I grew up with the Care Bears. I mean, this was something that I did grow up with, and I feel like this is something that could possibly be interesting to see how it's done in movie form. I feel like there's something that could be done there, and like I said, they got a good director behind it, so maybe it could work. Maybe they can actually have something here. But I mean, good cast, good director overall. And good people behind the scenes overall. These guys, I mean, Goldstein and Daly, like I said, they made Dungeons and Dragons, which is a criminally underrated movie that did not get the numbers that it should have, but that was a ton of fun. That was a really good movie overall. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with the Care Bears movie in general. So let's go ahead and move on to the next story. So that Star Wars movie that we were talking about before with Mikey Madison originally going to star in it, they have found somebody to take her place. Mia Goth has joined Ryan Gosling in Star Wars Starfighter, the feature from director Sean Levy. Gosling is leading the new feature project, which is expected to begin production this fall in England and is scheduled to open May 28, 2027. Details on the project are scant, but it does involve Gosling playing a character that must protect a young charge against evil pursuers. Goth will play one of the pursuers. It is said that it is the same role that Mikey Madison had been circling before her deal blew up like a Death Star over money matters. Lucasfilm had no comment. The film is a standalone story that will be unconnected to the so-called Skywalker saga. The story is centered around well-established and beloved characters, Luke Skywalker and his father Anakin, aka Darth Vader. The events of Starfighter take place approximately 5 years after the events of 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. This is a standalone. It's not a prequel, not a sequel. It's a new adventure. It's set in a period of time that we haven't seen or explored yet. So yeah, this is the role that Mikey Madison was originally set to star in, and now they've got Mia Goth to do it, which which is a good casting overall. She's been some good stuff. She's of course best known for working in the Ty West trilogy, X, Pearl, and Maxine. She's going to be in Frankenstein, the Guillermo del Toro movie, which looks pretty badass. And then she has a role coming up in the Odyssey, which could be pretty good. But yeah, not much more to say about that one, but it's good to see that they're doing more with the Star Wars movies now, and they're going to go outside of the regular series in general. So let's see what they can do with the outside of the series. We got the Mandalorian and Grogu coming up next summer, so that's something to look forward to. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie story I got for you. So last up in terms of the movie stories here, Ben Stiller is possibly going to direct the Twilight Zone movie. This is a story that comes from The World of Real, and it says, believe it or not, Leonardo DiCaprio's Appian Way has been trying to get a Twilight Zone movie off the ground for more than 15 years. The project has been a revolving door of writers or directors dating back to 2011, with Matt Reeves and then Joseph Kosinski signed on to direct. However, now it looks like it might finally actually happen. According to the Insider, Ben Stiller is now attached to direct the Twilight Zone for Appian Way and Warner Brothers. Stiller had been developing the film quietly for about 6 months now. It's currently considered an open writing assignment, meaning that the script is still in flux. But the direction is clear. Unlike the 1983 anthology film, the new take will focus on one contained story, not multiple shorts. One version of the script reportedly followed a fighter pilot testing a prototype rocket capable of faster-than-light travel, only to find himself 125 years in the future in a utopian society that, shocker, isn't quite what it seems. Standard Twilight Zone fare, sci-fi premise, philosophical bite. That logline is not final. A new writer could bring in something entirely different. Stiller's attachment makes sense. He's a longtime fan of Rod Serling's original series and has openly cited it as a major influence on Severance, his well-received original series, which, after Severance, man, I mean, Ben Stiller has every right to do whatever he wants to do here at this point, because, yeah, Severance is one of my favorite shows, one of the best shows of the year so far. It's a terrific show. It's a really good show in general, and the creative style and vision of that show, you could definitely tell there was a lot of influence on the Twilight Zone. And it makes me excited to see what they do with it. I'm really excited to see this hopefully get off the ground, see Ben Stiller do something that's completely outside of his norm in general. It's not a comedy, but he's been doing a good job of going outside of his norm the last decade, and he's done a pretty good job of handling that. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm really looking forward to seeing. Hopefully it'll get off the ground, and I'm really hoping it turns out to be good. Hopefully it actually gets made, because like I said, they've been developing for a long time now. And yeah, we had the Jordan Peele Twilight Zone for Paramount Plus, which was a good show overall, but I'd be really curious to see what they can do with it in movie form. So that's something I'm definitely looking forward to checking out when it eventually gets made. So with that said, let's get to some reviews and some stuff that's come out over the last couple of weeks and days that I wanted to talk about, starting with something that happened just yesterday. So yesterday, CNN aired the one of the last performances of Good Night and Good Luck, which is the Broadway production of the George Clooney 2005 movie, which he directed, and this actually marks his Broadway debut. And, you know, I love the original Good Night and Good Luck movie. It was one of my favorite movies from 2005, and so I was kind of tempted to see what this new Broadway version of it, because it's an updated version of it, and you have a story that's very similar to the 2005 film, which you have George Clooney playing CBS journalist Edward R. Murrow, and it's a battle between him and U.S. Senator Joseph McCarthy regarding the senator's investigation and the use of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee of Investigations to blacklist people suspected of being communists. And near the end of the play, they add a projected montage of news footage, including the destruction of the World Trade Center, the January 6th Capitol attack, and Elon Musk's Nazi salute, just to name a few. So they were promoting this on CNN as this big thing they were going to show. And I believe they said it was today. Today actually was the last day the performance was being held, but yesterday was the second to last performance. A good cast in this, too. You got George Clooney as Edward Murrow. You got Clark Gregg, Phil Coulson from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as Don Hollenbeck, Alana Glazer from Broad City as Shirley Warshaba, Paul Gross, Chris Denham, Franz Kranz, and I would like to show a little bit of footage here, but you can't find this anywhere on streaming, unfortunately. I mean, it was only on CNN last night, and they have I cannot find a single place to stream it. Like, you had to have literally recorded this as it was on the air to see what it really was like, and yeah, it's not even on CNN's YouTube page, like any highlights or anything, but there is one scene in particular that did show up here, that did show up online. I want to play that a little bit of that real quick.
We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty. We must remember always that accusation is not proof, and that conviction depends upon evidence and due process of law. We will not walk in fear one of another. We will not be driven by fear into an age of unreason if we dig deep in our history and our doctrine and remember that we are not descended from fearful men. Not from men who fear to write, to speak, to associate, or to defend the causes that are for the moment unpopular. We proclaim ourselves as indeed we are the defenders of freedom wherever it continues to exist in the world. But we cannot defend freedom abroad by deserting it at home. The actions of the junior senator from Wisconsin have caused alarm and dismay amongst our allies abroad and given considerable comfort to our enemies. And whose fault is that? Not really his. He didn't create this situation of fear. He merely exploited it, and rather successfully. Cassius was right. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves. Good night, and good luck.
I mean, that's George Clooney as Edward R. Murrow, and when you watch this performance, I mean, he's doing a hell of a job channeling Edward R. Murrow, and it reminded me a lot of what David Strathairn did in the original movie. Like, he does a pretty good job in this, and he got nominated for a Tony Award, which is actually tonight, and it's actually going to start about an hour from now, so maybe he'll be a Tony Award winner by the time this is done with, But yeah, this was really good. I was actually really surprised at how much I enjoyed this. This is actually a very good modernized retelling of the original movie in general, updating it for modern times in general, and I thought it was actually done very well. I think they did a very good job of handling that, and the casting overall was indeed top notch. I think they did a very good job casting wise, production wise. I thought it was very good. I think it was a very entertaining thing. I'm just kind of bummed that they didn't put this out anywhere to stream or anything, or to watch anywhere else. Like, literally, you had to watch it on CNN, or it's basically just like, you're shit out of luck. You're not going to be able to see this again, which sucks, but at the same time, it's just like, I'm glad I got to see what I did last night. I wish I knew that this was going to be the only time I'd see it. I don't know, maybe CNN was just waiting until Monday to do it, to put it up online or something like that, but yeah, I'm shocked that I couldn't find this anywhere, but maybe I need to just do some more research of it. But if you can find it out there, definitely seek it out, because it is a really good retelling of the original movie in general, and it's a great movie. It's a great movie. It's a great story to tell, and it works to modernize the story with all the stuff that's been going on since the original film came out. It's a really good movie. It's a really good version of the show, and I can't recommend it enough. If you can find it out there, definitely check it out. So that was what was on TV yesterday, but I caught up on some movies as of late that came out in theaters the last couple of months, and considering that it's kind of a slow week for new movies, there probably won't be a recommendation segment this week, but might as well go ahead and talk about some of the more recent movies that I saw as of late that you probably have not seen or heard of, but you really ought to, because all three of them are actually really good. One of the big ones I was really looking forward to seeing when I finally got a chance to get the Blu-ray for it was Better Man, which, I'll tell you, man, like, I hate that this movie did not perform well at all, but then again, when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because the movie is basically a movie about Robbie Williams, who most people don't know who he is, but he's done some songs that you're very familiar with. He did Millennium, he did Angels, he did one of the best openings for the Johnny English he did the opening song for the Johnny English movie, A Man for All Seasons, which was great. But it's not just a typical biopic. It's a biopic where he plays an anthropomorphic chimpanzee, and this was because Williams' perception of himself as a performing monkey, and the director's vision of the film as a satirical musical, and no other characters comment on his appearance. It's literally how it's supposed to show up in the movie, and really, this is probably one of my favorite movies of the year, and one of my favorite movies of the decade. I think this year, you're going to see a lot more films that came out the year before making the top 10 list for the best movies of the year, because there's at least 3 movies I have on there, that 3 or 4 movies from films that I saw, 5 films actually from last year, that probably would make this list that I have for the year so far, because it really didn't open up near me. So Flo's another example. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. And this one definitely is one that really, you gotta see it to believe it, because it is that good. It's one of the most bizarre concepts for a musical I've ever seen. And yet, it's one of the best musical biopics I've ever seen. This is the biopic I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for somebody to take a musical biopic and just don't go down the safe and marketable route like they did with Bohemian Rhapsody or Whitney Houston or Bob Marley, or what they're doing now with the Michael Jackson biopic. Like, don't be afraid to do something different or unique with it. Don't be afraid to show the rough times. Don't be afraid to be safe and to be unsafe and unmarketable. Just make a good movie, and this one definitely delivers on that. This was a shit ton of fun, and I couldn't believe this came from the same man who did The Greatest Showman, which has a great soundtrack, but the movie, not so much. The movie's not that great. Yeah, I know, the film didn't do well because nobody really knows who Robbie Williams is, and they thought the idea of a musical biopic where the main guy who's at the front of it is a chimp, a CG chimp, is not really that intriguing. But you know what? It made for one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had in a long, long time. This is a really good movie, man. This movie, unfortunately, didn't do well at the box office at all, but man, is it going to have a hell of a life later on down the road. This is a cult classic in the making. I mean, it really is. This is a film that I do recommend checking out. You can find it out there. If you can find it on, you can find it somewhere. It's got to be out there somewhere on streaming. I think it's available on Paramount Plus, maybe Apple TV and Amazon. But seek this movie out, man. This is a movie you got to check out. It's got to be it's something you have to see to believe. If you're tired of the same old musical biopics that do the same things over and over and over again, here's one that does something completely new and different, and it just works. It's a ton of fun. Can't recommend it enough. Better, man. Another one that I just got to check out this week, which is finally available on Hulu, is The Last Showgirl. It's a movie that stars Pam Anderson as a middle-aged Las Vegas showgirl who's faced with an uncertain future after learning that the revue that she had performed in for 3 decades is scheduled to close. And this is based off of a book by the person Kate Gersten, who wrote the script for this, where she based it on her visits to the Jubilee show shortly before its closure in 2016. In addition to Pamela Anderson, you've got Brenda Song, Dave Bautista, Billy Lord, and Jamie Lee Curtis on the cast in here. And this is a really, really good movie, mostly boasted by Pamela Anderson's performance in here. And it's one I was waiting a long time to get to, but this is a film that works. It shines on a transcendent performance by Pam Anderson, showing a potential for a rebirth in her acting career, stealing the show, and really should have been somebody who should have been an Oscar contender this past year. I mean, it would have been a tough category to be in the same lanes as somebody like Cynthia Erivo and Mikey Madison and Demi Moore, but she should have been up there in that list. I would have replaced her with I would have replaced Carlos Sofia Gascon from Amelia Perez with her, honestly. Great cast overall, great score by Andrew Wyatt, a great sleek visual look to it. It was directed by Gia Coppola, whose last couple of movies she made as a director, Palo Alto and Mainstream, weren't quite as successful or as good as some of the other movies, that the Coppola family have made. But this is the first movie where she really gets to show what she does as a director as a whole, and I really enjoyed the hell out of it. I think this is a really good movie, and hopefully this is the beginning of a good revival career for Pamela Anderson as an actress. I mean, we've got The Naked Gun with her coming up in a couple of weeks, so I'm really curious to see how she'll do in that. But even the shows she did back in the day were surprisingly really good. Like Stripperella is one of those shows where, it's Pamela Anderson as a superhero stripper. So big deal. Turns out that show had more lasting legacy to it compared to the other shows that were on opposite with it when Spike TV had their animation block, Ren and Stimpy and Gary the Rat. And just yesterday I talked about the show Stacked, which was created by the guy who did Modern Family. A really good show that really didn't last very long. I think it only lasted 1 year, but she's never been really that bad of an actress overall. There's only been one movie where she's in where she really wasn't that great, and that was Barbed Wire. But then again, that movie had its problems on its own, mostly in the scripting part of it. But here, it's a nice return to form, and it really gives a lot of promise to what her career could be going down the road. So hopefully this film is the start of something great for her. And that's my thoughts on The Last Showgirl. And then finally, the last one we have here is Magazine Dreams, which is the film that Jonathan Majors starred in. Premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2023 and was supposed to go up in theaters by Fox Searchlight, but then they dropped it because of both the actor strike and also the controversy surrounding Jonathan Majors' criminal cases. But this is a return to this is proof that Jonathan Majors is on his way to becoming one of those great actors, and hopefully this will be the opportunity for a comeback after everything he had gone through the last couple of years. He plays a social outcast bodybuilder, Killian Maddox, whose dream of becoming a bodybuilder consumes his entire life. His suppression and aggressive tendencies consume him, and his obsessions with becoming a Mr. Olympia champion brings him to a complete mental breakdown. In addition to Majors, you have Haley Bennett, Taylor Page, Harriet Sampson Harris, Michael Hearn, and Harrison Page behind the cast in this. And once again, it's a movie where Jonathan Majors really does show his acting potential, and hopefully this is the thing that launches him back on the comeback trail overall. I mean, this is a movie that really does show what this guy's capable of doing as an actor, and it's a great, fascinating character study about this bodybuilder who's trying to be the best of the best and wants to have that success of becoming, the next big superstar like Arnold Schwarzenegger. In a way, it kind of also parallels The Substance in many ways, minus the body horror aspect, of course, but it's a really good movie. I was actually really glad I got to see it finally. Luckily I found it at Walmart yesterday for a pretty good low price in general, but it was only $15 there, so I grabbed it, I watched it, and I'm really glad I did. It was a really good movie, one you should definitely check out, Magazine Dreams. So there you go, Better Man, The Last Showgirl, and Magazine Dreams. Consider those my recommendations for the week, since there really is not a whole lot out there for you to check out in terms of newer releases. But now, with all that said, that's going to wrap this episode of the Reviewing Network Live up. So thank you guys so much for watching this and enjoying it. I hope you did. If you did, go ahead and check out the playlist. Check out the previous episode I did. And remember, we're always new here every Sunday night. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. So until then, we are out.